Welcome to the 51st episode of the Global Exclusive Podcast. I'm Bharos, and I am ecstatic to announce that this is finally going to be the episode I have been waiting for a long time. I'll finally have me some alone time with Muspel.
I hate to bring
Not
it to you,
today.
Bharos, but Dream and I are going out.
Wait, I wasn't aware of this. You've sprung this on me. I was gonna say I've come to save you, but now I think I should just leave.
Alright, my heart is broken in two pieces. I was hoping we were gonna do like rub each other's feet, talk about what underwear we prefer.
Let's talk about something that I would much rather talk about than this, which
like smelling each other's sex toys? Jokes aside, we do have a packed episode, we have a new banner, and we also have a new, incredibly difficult trial that's hard to beat with most units in the game right now. So, about those units, Muspel.
It's really interesting. This week, Gumi decided to do something that we haven't seen yet this year, and they released new units.
Indeed, the first new units of 2021, and they are all game-breakingly amazing. They define the meta, and it's going to be so fun talking about them.
Yeah, so the first unit is Lasswell's dad, Hess Sage Rowan. And
I thought you were going to say Lasswell's katana, because that's what she actually is.
yeah, so he has a TM that's okay. It's a Dragon Healer materia, which is good to have more of, and he is otherwise completely unremarkable, and we can move on to the next unit.
True. I mean, Dream, you were talking about maybe mentioning finisher potential in DV. What were you saying?
If you somehow don't have an Envy Mage, or like only the really bad ones and they're the wrong element, you can imbue his Limit Burst because it's got a decent mod and he has a buff for it, I guess.
Potential is a strong word.
It really is. Well, okay, so if you just look at the mods and the buffs, it seems decent, right? It's a 100x physical type magic move LB, and he has like, what, 150 or 200% LB buff, active LB buff?
200 buff and 150
200 even. Yeah, exactly.
I have a theory. I think that Rowan was originally going to be Lasswell's base form.
What the fuck, Muspel?
I mean, look at him. He's another ice magic unit. He's got, like, if you did this, then Lasswell would be the same in base form and Brave Shift form, I guess. So maybe he was supposed to be Lasswell's Brave Shift, and then they decided to spin it off into its own unit and give him another Brave Shift that was just a similar version of this, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe it's showing where Lasswell gets his weird mage roots from.
I guess.
Yeah, more of that, because, like, in the actual story, we've never seen what happens with Lasswell, and I don't want to spoil it for you listeners. You're just gonna have to fucking wait until we talk about Lasswell. So move on.
Yeah, so not really much else to say about him. So the next unit is Lasswell.
Oh, shit, okay, no, you didn't have to wait that long.
It's like you have to wait until it's time. It is now time.
So, okay. Can I start off with Lasswell? Can I start off? So, Lasswell has really, really cool unit design. And on top of that, he has a ridiculously overpowered and delicious CGLB in his base form, and has really good sprites to boot. And the design that I really enjoy in this case is that Lasswell is in fact a physical chainer in his base form, and he shifts into a physical type magic chainer like Ace and Rem in his shift form, in his Brave Shift, which I think is incredibly cool.
Now the problem is, he's kind of weak as shit.
Yeah,
so the problem is...
he does about half as much damage as Eldrin.
Yeah, exactly. Or rather, let's put it this way. So his physical form does about the same as Awakened Dragon Axstar, kind of, meaning that he is in the previous tier of damage dealer, so to speak. We've kind of moved past that tier with Adele, Onion Knight, Sora, Riku. So he's in the previous tier of damage.
And honestly, that damage is like fairly optimistic as well. It's using like an LB chaining rotation that uses it pretty frequently, because he has his Brave ability that like fills 6 for all allies per cast. So that's, I guess he has a tiny bit of utility in like that emergency cover, the entrust, and the AoE LB fill. But
Right.
there's also the problem of, like, with that LB heavy rotation, he's relying on Agrandus for his LB buff, so after 3 uses he kind of runs out.
Yeah.
So if you time it well, you can get 2 LBs per buff, because it lasts 4 turns.
Yeah,
I mean, if you... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think what we're seeing here is that Alum realized they made a mistake with Ace and Rem because their damage was too high and it made people stop pulling for regular mages. So they made another physical mage because people wanted one, but they made sure that he sucked.
Okay, so I buy that. I buy that to a degree because the benefits of physical type are many, right? So I buy it to a degree that a physical type magic chainer should be inherently weaker than an elemental locked mage. I buy that. But I do think that Lasswell falls a bit too short. In fact, like, okay, I am terrible at math, we all know that, but I do think that, like, Eldrin probably outdamages him if he just gears for magic.
Probably, yeah.
I think, yeah, maybe. It would probably depend on how big a difference the defense and spirit thing is. Like, maybe with the 10 times difference on those DV stages, Lasswell might be able to hit harder with his LB because Eldrin isn't very bursty.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. That's true.
But in terms
Burst-wise,
of sustained damage, Lasswell only deals a little more than half Eldrin's damage. So...
And that's with his physical rotation.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so magic rotation is lower, and I could definitely see Eldrin beating him on either side of the equation. Just even if you cut out the other half entirely.
Yeah. So, however, I want to take a step back to the design. Like, I really think it's a cool design. In this unit, you're getting kind of the complete kit. You're pulling a damage dealer that can do physical damage on physical trials, and then just by shifting the unit, you can get magic damage on magic trials. And that is really cool, though. You have to admit, that is really cool.
It's a neat idea, but...
It's neat for old trials, but for the new ones that, like, actually have bulk and turn limits that aren't trivial, he's kind
like
of...
the one we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, and pretty much all of the ones after it.
Yeah. Okay, but I mean, again, it's a cool unit.
Just don't pull
also,
for him.
running out of imbues after 12 turns on his magic form isn't that cool either.
His TM and STMR are both pretty good. The TM is a Dragon Killer materia with TDH. The STMR is armor with Bug Killer. I'm not
good
sure
stats,
why.
Actually.
I'm not sure why he has Bug Killer.
Mm.
Yeah, me neither.
Sandworm.
He has Bug Killer and Dragon Killer in his entire kit.
My best guess is that it's some kind of like pun in Japanese about like bugs and dragons or something.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, he has a skill named Bane of Dragons and Insects. Maybe it rhymes in Japanese or something. I don't know.
It doesn't. Okay, but one thing though about his STMR that's nice to say is that it's actually a very strong hybrid armor because it has like 47 attack and 70 magic, I think. So it's incredibly nice for hybrid units. In fact, it's probably our strongest hybrid gear since Toy Soldier's uniform.
The problem is that nowadays Dark Visions is where damage tends to matter the most, and there you want either magic or attack on most stages.
Yeah, sure.
So,
but I mean, for hybrids.
It's still also a source of pretty rare insect killer, and that's physical or magic, so it can be made use of by a lot of damage dealers.
Absolutely. I mean, I would love to have his STMR. If I shittered out the Lasswell, I'd be super happy to take him to EX1. Or EX2. 100%.
2?
What do you mean 2?
Because that's when you get the STMR.
Yeah, I said EX2. I corrected myself, sorry. I did say it. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a whole lot else to say about him, though.
Or let's put it this way. Muspel, you said don't pull. This is true. Don't pull because it's not a future-proof unit. It's a cool unit. If you love Lasswell, go for it. I know.
Present-proof.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean...
Here's our first past-proof unit. Move on to the unit on the banner who is somehow worse.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Envy unit, that's somehow worse,
Yeah.
all right? We do have...
The 7-star unit being worse was expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kunshira has her Neo Vision Awakening, and yeah, it exists.
It's like, hey, remember when you guys loved dual element chains?
Oh god, like that was the worst thing that I saw. I was like, oh wow, this is an absolute mirror of equity chainer that's hybrid. Nice, great partner for Eldrin. No, wait, holy shit. Like mods are terrible and dual elements on everything except terrible, terrible mods. So yeah.
She's
How about
honestly
5 elements?
she's honestly more of a breaker, but she's not a great one. She only has 75% breaks.
Which is such a shame. Why? Like we've gotten units like Shadow, and now they give us Kunshira's 75%? Like, come on.
I guess compared to the people with 80% full breaks on demand, hers is AoE, whereas a lot of theirs is single target, which is probably the reasoning behind it at least, but it's still bad.
If you want to see her as kind of like another version of Kryla, her breaks are a little worse. They're 75% instead of 80%, but she can spam an AoE break, so if it's an AoE fight, it's a little easier to manage that way. She has elemental resist, she has imperils, and she has a couple of moves that deplete the break gauge, so you might use her once in a while, but she's really not a good unit.
I mean, listen, everyone knows what Kunshira is good for, and that's for being a chaining bot for Zon and DV while buffing resistances. That's what she's good for. And she really didn't get better at that role. Like, so the 75% breaks, I guess, are nice.
She did get better at that role, because now she has...
For DV...
She has an 85% defense and spirit break.
Yeah.
Oh, that is true. Yes,
on
that is
Shift LB.
So that is true. Yes. So in that role, like for the easy trials, if you just need some magic resistance or some resistances and breaks and chaining bot, then yeah.
Yeah, and having AR frames is also good, obviously. And 125% lightning and wind and peril.
But not much else to say, unfortunately. I think it's a shame.
Is that enough trying to defend her?
No, I mean, okay, so for our listeners to understand just how poor Kunshira performs, because she's a hybrid, right? NVA hybrid. So she deals half the damage of Elena. And Elena is already behind. She deals fourth? Well, almost 1/4 of Eldrin's damage. And this is unfair. Yeah, I mean, and this is unfair because we've gotten chainers, especially mage chainers, that have been on par with mages. We've gotten Kefka and NVA Sabin that do decent damage. And here we have Kunshira doing absolute bottom of the barrel damage.
I mean, she's weaker than Balthea.
Yeah, she does have the support capabilities. I think they were trying to make her a support. They just undertuned the breaks. If she had 80% breaks, she would actually be a reasonably solid unit. Definitely not top tier, but about what I expect from an NVA.
Maybe if she could also maintain her element resist buffs with full uptime, or
she can maintain the 50% ones, just not the big ones on the cooldown.
50% one.
Yeah, I mean it's
50%. What year is it? Yeah. What year is it? Yeah. No, but it's a shame. It's a shame. I mean, she could have still done 80% of Elena's damage, for instance. That would have still been decent, and then she would have be this decent support chainer that also has some other stuff. I don't know. Right now, she's just underwhelming. I mean, unfortunately, just underwhelming. And you don't need her brave shift. You don't need shit. Which is a shame for all the furries in the world. Speaking of furries, how well invested are you two in that community?
Let's talk about Uraisha.
Not.
Yes, let's talk about Uraisha, the best unit on the banner. Finally, technically, Uraisha has been the best support in the game always. The wiki ratings people haven't seen it like that, but she has, and now it's true again.
Why does she have the insect and dragon killer thing too?
That is interesting. In fact, AoE insect. Well, okay, first I'm not complaining. So she's a support that has 100% dragon and insect killer AoE. Super nice. But why? I mean, I guess some type of connection to Lasswell,
with dragons and insects in this story event that I haven't gotten to yet.
Wait, maybe we're making fools of ourselves because I have skipped the story event. Maybe this was super explained in the story event. Have you seen the story event, Muspel?
I skipped all the cutscenes.
God damn it. So let's just pretend in the story event this is explained that the Hess bloodline has dragons and insects are their mortal enemies.
The Hess bloodline is actually a family of dragon slayers, but there aren't enough dragons around. So in their off hours, they work as an exterminator.
Yes, that sounds very reasonable, and this runs in their blood. Yes. Anyway, so Uraisha, obviously being the grandmother of the Hess bloodline, definitely has these killers. And she just got incredibly better at her job in her base form. So in her base form, she has even bigger barriers, and now has a move that just buffs and gives barriers. Move gives her incredible action economy because she still has a really strong kit. Like, aside from that, it's aged a bit, but she still has a lot of stuff.
Yeah, other than her kills, her two other new abilities in base form are, like, really do a lot to buff her up. Like, she's got the now spammable 50% Gen Mit and 3.5k barrier attached.
Yeah.
And like, because Gen Mit was, like, kind of a problem for her before. And then the other one is probably, like, her main unique selling point, which is it steals imperils from all allies. So being able to do that on demand can be a pretty.
But good thing to note.
And then it also comes
good thing to note is she
strong
steals
buffs.
imperils from all allies except herself, meaning that
Yes.
you do need to handle that. You do need to handle, like, if you're relying on her.
That's how a steal works.
Yeah.
It transfers them to
I'm just saying, like, some people, especially in the Discord, I've seen some people call it an imperil cure, which it isn't. It steals imperils to her. So you still need to dispel her if you don't want her to die from, like, a really strong...
Or just, realistically, it's probably easier to just gear her for whatever crazy amount of resist she needs.
Or a lot of the time, the stuff you're stealing, or the elemental stuff will just be hitting your tank, and you're really just stealing the imperil from
that
the
is also
tank.
Yeah, so she doesn't need it.
And then it's not hitting.
Another thing to keep in mind, she used to have trouble with barriers a little bit because it was stuck behind an unlock. Now it's just part of her base kit.
Yeah, it's so good.
She doesn't have to worry about that. It's much more convenient.
Yeah, before Uraisha had 1 turn downtime of barriers because there was 1 turn you had to reapply a buff to get her barriers up and running. And now that's just... I mean, obviously, you're probably just not even using her unlocks that much anymore. You're probably just using her new abilities and spamming those. So, yeah. And then her shift form, Brave shift form, is super interesting. So she becomes kind of a healer with a very specific niche that a lot of people have, of course, been using on the new trial. Dream, what is it?
Well, I haven't seen her used on the new trial, but I'd say the two sort of niches she has alongside the healing support are really strong, like both typed mitts for partial uptime on those, and the Grandis that lets her do 2 big LB support turns back to back with fill 40 and 100% damage buff.
Oh, cool. So you mentioned 2 things I wasn't thinking about at all that are really, really good. But the thing I was thinking about is actually, of course, her AoE party-wide... I don't want to call it a dispel because it isn't. It's a cleanse, so it removes all negative stuff.
Perfect dispel, I think.
Yeah, perfect dispel. Yes, perfect. So party-wide perfect dispel. It removes all negative aspects from your party except imperils. It removes all negative aspects from your party.
No, it removes imperils.
No.
It includes imperils.
Yeah.
It's everything that's a red effect on when you long tap.
Debuff is a catch-all term for anything that could be removed by dispel.
Wait, but I could... Okay. I could have sworn someone said it didn't specifically remove imperils.
Well, they're wrong.
Okay. Oh, but that's really good then. Then she actually has an imperil remover, like an actual, like, that isn't a steal. Oh, wow, okay.
Yes, but it is a Grandis.
The thing is,
so.
So there's only 3 uses of that compared to the other one being on demand.
And a lot of the cases where you want imperil cures, it's because the boss basically spams it every turn. So I don't think this is a very workable solution for that kind of thing.
Okay.
It could be useful in Dark Visions, but in Dark Visions you can probably just use the steal as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, true. Well, that's actually a very interesting aspect. So for many people that need to drag on bosses to a later turn in order to set up high burst or in order to just clear it, maybe you just want to do like a turn 12 clear on the final boss because you can't burst it down in a single turn. She's actually going to be very useful because like all of the DV bosses actually do imperils on usually turn 3, right? So that's really going to be an easy way of, instead of dispelling your entire team.
Yeah, historically there's been ways around that where like you have Zon hide while he's stealing, like he steals buffs and then he hides and then you dispel the rest of the team, and it's this whole annoying juggling thing where you keep doing that until you have everything lined up the way you want it. But with Uraisha you can just take the imperils off of everybody else, and it's more convenient, and it means you don't need to bring a unit for Zon to copy from.
Yeah. And just to add to that, so one important aspect of this, like why are we even talking about imperils stealing, right? Because it hasn't been a problem yet. Well, in JP, they had Sayaka. So our Sakura and Ayaka unit that they got actually has imperil removal. And the reason why we're talking about it is that soon we're getting the Asura trial. Ashura trial. that will
I'm
actually...
not sure how it's pronounced.
Yeah, me neither. But that actually requires you to remove imperils. And as it looks right now, Uraisha is our only bet in GL for that trial, I guess. Which leaves players in this kind of awkward place where you would either need to bring... So if you don't have Uraisha or Gabranth, you're screwed. Because what you need to do to clear that trial, either you bring a friend Gabranth, or you bring a friend Uraisha if you have your own Gabranth. If you have both, of course, you're fine. But
I don't know if the Imperil removal is, like, absolutely required, because it's mostly just resulting in more damage on your tank, which is just going to make it much harder to survive, but it certainly helps a lot.
I mean, like, it's already a tight tank check as is, right?
Like, yeah. But there are other ways around it, like dispelling and things, but yeah, it's going to make things a lot easier to have that Imperil removal.
So all in all, a very strong unit. She can double as a healer in her shift form. She has no cooldown, or she has a cooldown back to shift that's only 2 turns, but they are both infinite, so she can actually do her roles very well. And the mitigation plus barrier move actually carries over, and her LB in shift form is also very strong and nice. It's a... now I'm reading it from memory, but it's a 280% buff to all stats and a 4.5k barrier? 6k. Oof, it's so thick. Thick granny.
180 MP as well.
180 what?
180 MP.
Oh, yeah. It does
restore.
have an MP restore as well, yeah. So it's a very nice LB. I actually use it a lot for the current trial. Very nice.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, maybe...
Yeah, so we got a new trial, and this is one we've been talking about for a while, I think. Scorn of the Demon Chimera Extreme.
Yeah, this is really the start of the, like, actually hard or at least tanky trials.
Yeah, mechanically, it's not very complicated. The boss doesn't actually do a whole lot. Like, uses a couple of elemental AoEs, but if you have Phasey and you can get some Mirage going, then you're at basically 0 risk of dying.
Yeah, so to break it down, the boss has an extremely simple 5-turn repeating rotation, which consists out of starting with a physical turn, where you need a physical evade provoker, and either 2 stacks of Mirage or a physical evade provoker that also covers, to completely negate the damage. You take no damage on that turn. Turn 2 is a magical AoE turn, where the boss randomly does water or wind or non-elemental magic. Then turn 3 is the physical again, turn 4 is the magical again, and then turn 5 is a special turn where the boss only targets your provoker with death, that's resistible, MP drain that fully drains your MP, and also applies a AoE accuracy debuff on your entire team that you need to deal with. And you can deal with that in one of 2 ways. You can either dispel it, of course, dispelling your team in any which way you can by using Uraisha's Grandis or by just, Bushido Freedom or whatever. Or you can actually apply Onion Knight's buff. Although you're probably not bringing Onion Knight for this trial, right, Dream?
Yeah, I mean, or you just bring units that don't need accuracy, because the,
Chimera,
mages, as we said, is very bulky, and there is basically 2 units that can reasonably clear it in turn limit currently, and that's Phasalis and Ibarra, because it's also only weak to Ice and Lightning.
I beg to differ, because Sinzar just posted a vid in the Discord where he used Sol and a friend Phasalis, just saying.
Yeah. Well, his Sol and Phasalis clear, his initial one wasn't in turn limit. Did he get a turn limit?
Seems so, yes. 14 turns,
oh.
So it does work.
So the thing I said beforehand that Sol might just be able to do it was right. Hooray. And I think I've also seen 1 Eldrin clear that was in turn limit,
no,
but that
2.
was
there are
very...
2. There is Togio did one that uses only Realm. And then there was another one that was really cool using Tyro as a tank and support chainer for Terra. So there are 2, but I mean, obviously both also required quite whaled up Eldrins too.
Yeah, it's a much higher bar to turn limited.
But it's
I
possible.
want to talk about why you don't use physical.
Yeah.
Beyond just the accuracy.
Please.
Because the boss every single turn will buff his defense by 200%, and that's undispellable. So he takes massively reduced damage from physical.
Yeah, basically, I think magic is effectively like 2.25 times more effective.
Something like that, yeah.
And you've also got a similar multiplier of around double of using like ice or lightning compared to other elements, I think.
Yeah, the boss's defense is so high that Kuja would probably outdamage like Riku or something.
Yeah, easy. I mean, easy.
Well,
Yeah. No, that'd be about the same, I think.
Maybe with killers, Riku might actually pull ahead, but it would probably not be that big a difference.
Well, Riku would be able to use correct element, mostly, or at least mixed, while Kuja would be locked into wrong ones.
That's true.
So
yeah, actually, I didn't think of that. That
between them.
And the correct element in this case...
The point is, it's a huge difference.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
so when you math it out, when you look at the stats, it's like, 30-something thousand defense, spirit, and then it's like 86,000 defense after the buff that the boss puts on itself. So it's a huge difference, and obviously we all... So you know, some of you know the damage formulas, you know how this is going to impact your damage. But...
Well, I said it's 2.25.
Yeah, exactly.
Different.
And the correct elements, as you mentioned, Muspel, in this case, are ice and thunder. It's minus 75 ice and minus 50 thunder innate resistance. On top of that. So, yeah, like Ibarra and Physalis are our only thunder and ice mage that we have. So, makes sense that they can do it.
Good. Because, I mean, like, Sol and Kefka exist as, like, sort of weaker versions of those elements.
Yeah. But unfortunately, I mean, already Sol is doing like not quite half of Physalis' damage, but close to half. And
in practice, it probably is about half, because compared to like her self-sustaining spreadsheet damage, the thing with Physalis is with a bunch of extra external LB support from someone like Realm also doing Rod in Peril, you can give her quite a bit of an extra edge by just using that LB chain more often.
Yeah. I do want to say, we're talking about how hard it is to beat within the term limit. The only reward for that is 5 STMR tickets.
Exactly.
Which isn't that much. So I don't want people to like go out there and freak out and think that they have to pull really hard for some units that they can beat this trial. Because if you go past the turn limit, like the boss doesn't start doing anything special. If you can kill within 15 turns, 30 turns is not really any harder. As long as you can survive the 5-turn rotation, you're perfectly safe.
Exactly. It's so simple. I mean, it is a fixed 5-turn rotation. You just need to do whatever you did the first 5 turns and repeat it for however many turns you need to kill this boss, and you will kill this boss. And in fact, I mean, technically, if you don't have a phasey, but you yourself can gear a physical cover tank, you can bring a friend phasey, and you can clear this trial by using Medius. Because you can. You do need like an ethicite or some type of sealing mechanic.
Yeah, you still have to... That's the other thing we didn't mention. Below half health, at the start of each of its turn, it will heal 30% of its health unless you seal it with an ethicite, disease it, or apply reflect to it with the double.
You just bring Celeste. I mean,
it's
Celeste
become
if you're doing
immune
this.
to disease if you do it over and over again?
Well,
I don't think so, but it has like a chance of curing it at the start of each of its turns, unless it's the very first turn you apply it. So if an existing disease buff has been still on it for more than one turn, it has can't reapply, but it has a chance of curing it. So you can only ever rely on disease one turn.
But what you do is
and you can't use it consecutively.
Yeah, exactly. You alternate them. So you do disease on one turn.
Yeah.
The thing that can screw you over a bit with disease, though, is that let's say you're doing a disease nethicite rotation. So you have one of your units doing Toxic Rain. You're diseasing the boss. And then you do nethicite on the second turn. Imagine if disease didn't that happened to me in a couple of my runs, where disease doesn't run off the turn where you need to reapply disease. Now you're in a dangerous situation because you need to nethicite. And if your nethicite is on a unit that, like, for instance, needs to apply their cover that turn, you might be in a tricky situation.
If only there were a unit that could apply disease and cover every single turn.
Well, that's the thing. The frequent disease is unreliable. You have to use it.
Yeah, it's a nethicite you need. It's a nethicite you will need to apply every turn. That's the thing. It's a nethicite. You'd need to have a unit that can cover a nethicite. Although, wait, technically, well, okay, yeah, I mean, Phasey can, but not for... That's a shame. Because you could technically just shift every turn and apply and use Nethicite. But yeah, not for physical. So that can be a trick.
Also, Phasey
Yeah,
can't
and I
check.
mean, you can also just Nethicite every turn. Like, if you're bringing, let's say you're bringing a friend Phasey, you have your own physical cover tank that is full of aid. You don't need anything else for this trial. You can have Celeste in there doing runic.
But in all seriousness, I was talking about AI Katie because she has chaining moves that apply every element, and she can triple cast those with her cover.
Oh, okay. You mean every debuff? Ailment. I thought you said element. My bad.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I heard element.
Oh, sorry.
As well.
But yeah, so that's, I mean, the trial is, in fact, very, very simple, and it only becomes just a little bit tricky when you go below the 50%, because then you really have to manage your turns. You really have to think about, did I Nethicite, did I not, who do I need to use? As a veteran player, it does help that I have 2 Nethicites, so that kind of, offloaded the load a bit. I had 1 Toxic Rain, but then I had 2 Nethicites. I could always do a Nethicite anyway, kind of. And I used Rivera for my evasion tank, and that's super nice because Rivera literally has 1 turn she needs to act on in the entire 5-turn rotation. So she can technically actually just Nethicite 4 out of 5 turns and rinse and repeat.
Yeah. I mean, it depends how much you have covering, because like she can be covering provoke and cover stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
As well if you do evade, and she can also offer some handy support killers.
So yeah. Technically, you probably want to bring Uraisha for the support killers since hers are just slightly bigger. But yeah, I mean, and you're probably bringing Uraisha anyway to cure if you're using physical units, which I did. I wanted to clear it with Eldrin. You're also bringing Uraisha to clear the accuracy debuff. Although technically you don't really need Uraisha because Phasey is really doing everything on her own. It's nice with a spirit buff. Phasey doesn't have full uptime on her strong spirit buff, so you'd need to bring someone that can buff spirit. But aside from that...
Oh.
I don't think I even used a stat buff.
One other major mechanic I don't think we've mentioned yet is the field effect.
Yes, good.
Right.
Chimera preemptively applies a field effect that will reduce your entire team's resistance to all elements by 300%. And this is very bad. It
makes the elemental magic AoEs much rougher to
It's probably technically possible to clear the fight without having to deal with it without clearing it, but I would not recommend it. Ideally, you want to bring Envy Terra, because if she evokes an Esper on turn 1, it will create another field effect which overwrites it, and the boss never reapplies it. So once you use that, it's done. If you don't have Envy Terra and you can't afford to bring an Envy Terra friend, you could try using 7-star Setzer.
No, not 7-star Setzer. Oh, well, the new Setzer, Dashing Gambler Setzer,
Yeah, that's why I said 7-star.
Oh, yeah, because the other Setzer isn't 7-star, obviously.
Yeah, because he also has a field effect. It doesn't matter what the field effect does, just as long as it's a field effect, it'll.
And Chimera doesn't recast its field effect, so you just need to do it once, because no field effects are permanent anyway. Well,
but
the handy thing with Terra is that her Shiva and Ramu fields are also very handy for amping up your ice and lightning.
Yeah, and she can deal good damage herself. If you bring Setzer, I would imagine you're pretty much definitely not going to make the turn limit.
If you really want turn limit without Terra, you're going to need to bulk up Phasey a lot and work out your turns for like defending.
But one fun point, Muspel. So the Togio Eldrin Clear actually uses Setzer and Realm and does it in turn limit with Eldrin. Just saying.
Well, that's probably because Terra's fields won't.
Well, I mean,
Eldrin.
I was actually surprised by that because in my runs, so Terra actually does decent damage. I mean, she does at least 14%.
Yeah,
so
she
shaves off a bit. But no, it's a lot.
That's more than I expected. I guess your Terra is
she's less than very strong. You can't improve her. Well, you technically can. You can give her 25% more LB damage because I don't have Sora as DMR. But the thing is, I was... I know. I do regret it. But the thing is, like, Setzer does nothing. I mean, literally nothing except for applying a field, and he still did it. And I was so surprised when I saw that. I mean, I actually saw Togio's Eldrin in my friends list, and there's like it's not the Whaleldrin you're thinking of. It's an EX2 Eldrin. It's nothing, insane. So I'm actually pretty excited about trying a Realm Clear. I'm considering UOCing Realm fully to try it, because it seems to be quite easy.
I mean, having a slot like Setzer that doesn't do much here doesn't hurt that much, because in the second half of the fight they can just full
exactly.
take over.
And I mean, Setzer doesn't have double Mirage, right?
I don't think so.
I think he has any Mirage, does he?
And I was just wondering if Setzer did some type of, shenanigans, maybe the provoke tank or something.
He can fill LB gauge a little bit, and he can apply status ailments, so he can do disease.
No, I was just thinking maybe like Setzer did compress something, but then Togio, I don't remember his exact roster. I'm gonna have to look at it, but I do want to do it.
Well, he could buff the boss's attack and magic.
Yes, that is true.
So that just to make sure that the boss kills your tank.
Yes, indeed. And the boss still hits hard, so you're using FaZe. FaZe is a fucking unfair and broken unit, okay? This is what FaZe does on this fight on her fucking own. She applies 75% general mitigation to herself. She applies 70 to 80% full uptime magic mitigation on this fight, so not full uptime on any fight, but on this fight that has the rotation.
No, it is
Wait,
full
it is?
uptime on any fight.
Because the one is...
Yeah, that's why FaZe broke. She's got a 2-turn.
It's only 3 turns. I thought it was 4 turns. Okay. Then it makes sense. Okay, yeah. So she actually has incredible fucking utility, and she also has the resistances for this boss. She has water and wind resistance, so she just does everything on her own. You just put her there, and she will just do everything when it comes to tanking. But the boss still hits hard. Like, the boss hits hard. I mean, your phase is not gonna die, but it hits hard.
Well, it depends how many like elementless rolls you get, because there is some RNG with like which AoEs it uses on each of those turns. But yeah, I think on a particularly hard hitting one, I think my phasey went down from like 35k to 20k or something.
Yeah, which is quite sick. I mean, we're talking about big mitigation.
So yeah, it can be.
Oh.
It can be pretty dangerous.
I had a pretty weak phasey. I had like only 26k HP on her and elemental resistances. I didn't care so much about gearing her because she just survived. I didn't have to do that much. So yeah, but a fun trial. I mean, I did I did several Eldrin clears, and I didn't quite get under 15. I got my EX2 Eldrin today though with his STMR. So I do want to try a sub 15 clear if possible with non-rod Eldrin, which should be possible because I've seen a non-realm clear that's sub 15. That's the Tyro one, where you're actually using Tyro to Chaos Wave Chain with your Terra on off turns, which is hilarious. So I'm going to try that because that's easier than you seeing a realm.
But yeah, I did a sort of much more standard clear. I mean, I planned it long before I realized it was a standard clear, but I used double Phasalis, Terra and Realm for amping up their damage, Phasey for the magic tanking, and Rivera for dealing with the physical and helping out with like a bit of healing and beast killer buffs.
Did you try Bar?
No, because I figured Phasalis would have a slight edge over her, and I hadn't really used Phasalis for anything yet. And I've used Ibarra for several trials.
Yeah, of course. No, but I was just thinking if you were aiming to do another run.
A fair bit after her banner. No, I'm usually fine with just one clear if it's all missions.
It's an interesting trial. One tip I can give to our listeners, if you're thinking of doing this trial, especially if you're kind of you don't have Phasalis or Bharos, you're going to do a longer trial. Maybe you have an Eldrin that isn't whale geared, so you're going to look at like 25-30 turns. I got this tip from Sinzar, so big credits to Sinzar for this. I am a stupid man, so I never thought of this myself. But one thing that fits this trial really well is just to write down your turns on a nice spreadsheet or something like that. Just what every unit is going to do in every turn, because it is repeatable. It's a 5-turn repeatable rotation. So you can just write them down and you can just follow it turn by turn, and it makes it so much easier because I have fucking ADD. I cannot spend 25 turns and then remembering if I use Neticide or not. Okay, I can't. So I needed that, and that helped immensely.
I definitely found it handy as well, especially when like giving Phasalis those extra LB fill with Realm, like planning exactly when to do that was really handy.
I did the same with killers for Uraisha. I had to make sure that Eldrin had 100% uptime on both Beast and Demon killers. But still with, the Neticide turns and so on. So it was good. It was a really good tip, and I'm definitely going to do it again for trials, well, where it makes sense and where there is this kind of repeated...
Yeah, for these... There's like a sort of big three of trials that this is the first of, and the other two are Bahamut and Asura, and I think that sort of thing will be handy for both of them as well. After that, a lot of them are more sort of a bit simpler and mostly like kind of damage spongy rather than being too threatening.
So maybe we should wrap up, right? Do you guys feel you've said enough?
Yeah. Wait.
I do want to end with a message to Gumi. Like, I don't know if Gumi listens to the pod. They probably don't give a fuck. But, or I guess I really want to send a message to Alim, but I'm pretty sure Alim does not fucking listen.
Why not influencers?
Hey, Alim employee, if you are listening, I really encourage the design of Lasswell. Fantastic unit design. Please make more of these units. I actually don't even care that he is not the strongest unit. I just love this type of design. It's super cool. Make more units like Lasswell, Sabin, Aerith. Am I missing someone else?
Alum designer. I think I spend more on this game than Bharos. Do not do what he says.
Yeah. Wait.
Can I just request like decent enhancements?
Hey! Can we do a speculation thing? So, I have my own theory. What do you think happened to enhancements guy at Gumi? What do you think happened?
I think he died of coronavirus.
That's very dark. That is very dark.
No, but realistically, we hadn't I think we stopped seeing that like even before coronavirus happened, right?
No.
Like the good global enhancements.
I think no. It was like June that we got our last.
No, I don't mean enhancements in general.
Yeah,
I mean, like the really good global.
The enhancements guy,
ones.
which was like every new 7-star had a global upgrade, etc., etc.
Well, I mean, I don't know about the upgrades. I didn't check those, but like that June enhancement patch had like global upgrade on Charlotte, which was quite good, and like Elena's enhancements were good. So that last batch was a good one. So we don't count the copy pasted.
Yeah, before that, like we had a bunch of enhancements for global exclusive units and enhancements for units that just weren't upgraded at all.
Esther.
Like we had Xeno, Esther. We had the Valkyrie profile units. Just all kinds of units who just didn't really get anywhere near what they needed.
Dragon Quest units. God.
Maybe they're not allowed to change the collab ones.
Maybe that is maybe that wouldn't surprise me. Hey, I forgot to check this at the time, but did buffed Xeno or did enhanced Xeno still outdamage enhanced Bunny Girl? He did.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, barely 22 billion to 16.
I think he did like 50%
yeah, he
more
did.
damage.
Exactly 50%. Yes, exactly 50%. Or not quite. 6 billion more. 16 to 22.
Yeah, it was like
40%.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so that's a shame. I mean, I understand. I've said this many times before. I understand them not wanting to continue this trend of, the community really like, I mean, you remember Reddit back in the days when people were actually angry when we didn't get global upgrades on a banner. They were like, oh my god, this banner is unpullable. Fuck this shit, right?
What, you mean like 3 days ago with Lasswell?
Well, okay. I mean, I just said I actually don't care if Lasswell isn't like top of the meta, and I really don't. I do think he should be. I mean, I do think he should be a bit stronger because, like, he really clocks in very low right now. He's still usable, a bit stronger, but I really want to encourage this unit design though. This unit design is great. It's a bit weird that you turned Sabin into a magic tank.
It's never going to be good because if they make a unit that is both a good physical and a good magic damage dealer, then people don't have to pull.
Yeah, and I actually think
I'm sorry. That's
no,
all there is to it.
I agree.
I'm
not going to argue with you there at all.
And I don't want them to shit up the pool with terrible damage dealers.
I mean, they are they've been leaning more towards like making specific elemental and killer niches.
That's true. I mean, that's definitely something we see now. Where yes, there are better damage dealers than Physalis, but for this specific trial, she is creme de la creme, and
there will be a couple of things like the tag units and their damage against broken enemies passives being really important.
But I mean, I definitely wouldn't mind. I did a couple of Templars ones on Lasswell's banner just because I thought this is a really cool unit design. Unfortunately, I got my second Gabranth. That was the only thing I got. Well, Gabranth EX2, I guess, which is nice, though. That's very nice. Did any of you pull?
That's for... Fuck no.
Wait. I just asked Muspel if he pulled for a non-meta unit that is also a mage. That was a mistake.
I'm a sucker for Neo Rainbow
Yeah,
Revolution,
yeah.
so I'm poor.
All right.
I finally managed to hold
Think of
firm
the
and not pull on
STMRs.
this
Oh,
one.
yeah. It must have been really tough for you, Muspel. It's not a tank, and it's also a mage. It's underwhelming.
No, I meant the
Okay, Neo Rainbow. Yeah. I did 2 laps on the previous one.
Yeah, that's the one he would actually
I'm a sucker for them because, it's this fucking gambler mentality. There are a couple of STMRs I'm really hoping to get that I don't have to, so I don't have to USC them. Like Black Rosalia. I'd really like to get a Black Rosalia. I have 3 Sakuras, so I'm just waiting for one. There are a couple of more that I'm really, looking forward to getting. I'm really hoping to get another Shadow so I can get him to, you all remember this story. Edgar, I did, but I get nothing though. Those are such huge disappointments for me, like huge disappointments. Horrible.
I'm at the point now where there's only 4 or 5 STMRs that I really care about that I would need, and I'm mostly only 1 copy away. Black Rosalia, Irvine's STMR, Regina's STMR, Larsha's STMR.
Let me ask you, how many
Muspel,
UOCs do you
Jesus
currently
Christ.
have?
I UOC'd on Irvine.
And I think I have 11 or 12 STMR.
So I have
levels.
26 UOCs, and I UOC'd a Irvine just for this trial because it was fun. But we have different spending.
I guess I'm just better at saving than
We
you
have
are.
different spending habits.
Muspel's a
Yeah.
dragon sitting on his hoard. But I noticed for someone with such a collection, he was suspiciously silent on what his clear for
I haven't
Chimera
done it yet.
was.
I've been busy this
Do
week.
you have Physalis?
Exactly.
Yeah, I pulled her off
Oh,
banner.
right.
at one
Okay,
point.
but then it should be probably easy.
I'm not sure if I have the fragments. I think I do. I can probably use.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you should just run her through the dungeon now, right?
Not clearing trials.
It might be too late at this point. Let me double
Wait,
check.
I mean,
if
you
have
haven't run her through the dungeon,
fragments.
even knowing that Demon Chimera is coming? Jesus Christ. Okay, that's...
I was thinking about using Ibarra. I
Oh,
forgot
yeah,
that,
you have
Physalis had
Ibarra.
ice. I thought she was just.
No, but
thought
I
she
mean,
was just
Ibarra
water.
clear isn't... It's not that difficult. Yes, it requires more than Physalis, but I'm sure you're...
Yeah, I do have the fragments for Physalis, but I might just stick with
Yeah.
Ibarra.
All right, well, we should really wrap up. This has been a long episode. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone, for listening to yet another episode. It's fucking crazy. Episode 51.
Next week's our
It
1 year
is.
anniversary.
We should all do the podcast naked.
That is not going to
Why?
happen.
What? It's our...
And in fact, if anyone does the podcast naked, we will kick them off
Wait,
the podcast.
you mean you don't occasionally do the podcast naked? I am naked right now.
No.
Like, I am touching my balls as I'm saying goodbye.